Designers and Builders, where design meets construction. We explore groundbreaking trends and talk to the pros reshaping our spaces. For your dream home, workspace, or just great design inspiration, subscribe to Designers and Builders. Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Steve Larosiliere. Today's guest is Micah Stanley, who's a partner at Lawton Stanley Architects. How you doing, Micah?
Doing well, Steve. How you doing?
Good. It's good to have you on the podcast.
Thanks.
I love talking to highly creative people that do really cool projects. So can you give us a background about Lawton Stanley Architects and what kind of work do you do?
Yeah, sure thing. So we've been in business for a little over 13 years now, my partner, Christopher Lawton, and I. And we worked together at a kind of small, high-end design boutique-like firm in Chicago for a number of years together, and then broke off on our own. Kind of started doing some side work, and then that sort of blossomed into this business. And we came out of a company that did a lot of high-end residential and was also starting to get into restaurant work and some other kind of specialized commercial. And that's really what we've done over time. A lot of residential, a lot of restaurants that we've gotten some recognition for, and other specialized projects like office build-outs, lobbies, an occasional ground-up new home or mixed-use building. Most of our work is somewhat small because we're a somewhat small firm, but we've done a whole range of things. And what's been great about it is I think people come to us for unique and creative design solutions quite often, but it's come from a lot of different sources. So prior contacts, prior clients, but then also some builders bring us in sometimes, some developers bring us in sometimes. It really comes in from all over the place,
That's cool. Very cool. Tell us about those first couple of years. What were those like?
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, getting a business started up off the ground while also trying to, do the work itself was a lot, right? It really took a lot of energy, took a lot of hours, You kind of have to stumble through that stuff because it's not a process that you're used to, right? Setting up the corporation, all that stuff, and getting lawyers and accountants and payroll going and all those funny things was interesting. And then at the same time, it's you're in this realization that like everything, the projects that are falling into your lap are solely you, right? You're where the buck stops. You have to answer for everything. So that part of it was really interesting too. I feel like it went well, but it was a huge learning experience. It was very energizing at first, I think, just having that new experience and being exposed to it was great. I think we had the thing that a lot of first firms have where you get all these projects at once and you're like, wow, how are we even going to get this done? And you really have this blur of the first year or two. And then those finish up and it's like, okay, wait, what now are we doing?
Yeah.
And you almost have like a second lull. And like I feel like fighting through that lull, that first lull is huge, right? If you can get past that, that's when it almost feels like things stabilize and you start getting a good understanding for how much you need coming in and how much you can actually put out. But it was a really interesting process, all that. Some of it was, I think it's almost good being a little bit ignorant at first of how much work it all is, because if you really knew what you were up against, you might just do it,
Yeah.
You got to take the leap, just go for it and trust that you can actually finish the things you've promised.
Some background of your education.
Education. So I guess going way back, I was kind of more drawn into art at first. I drew a lot and I always liked making art. And that, I think that naturally rolled into, when I was like, how can I turn this into a functional career? That rolled into architecture. And so I originally started at Arizona State University because I just had a drive to move out west. I came from Illinois originally. I did my undergrad at Arizona State, which was really cool. And then I went to SCI-Arc, Southern California Institute of Architecture in Los Angeles for my master's degree, which was great because it was a whole world away difference from the kind of fundamental architecture that we did at Arizona State, So it was nice to have the balance between those two things, SCI-Arc was a really, really creative out there school, and I like that I had the like more simple, down to earth background from Arizona State.
Do you find yourself like leaning on the things that you learned in school in your work right now?
I think so, yes. I think the methodology for problem solving, yeah, it all comes from that. I think, when you go into those schools, I don't know, you have some like vague idea of Frank Lloyd Wright, and maybe, I'd seen like some pictures of Calatrava architecture or something, right? And I'm like, that's what it is. It's like this form making, this picture in my brain, you put it up. But then when you actually get into the methodology of doing it, it's so much more like taking a problem, and there's so many aspects to how you can think of how a building or a occupied built space is, breaking all the aspects of that down to their basic things and then solving those, through an architectonic method. And, it completely changes your approach and how you start thinking of those problems. You do not have this necessarily like a preformed idea in your head that you pull out. There's a process for going through it. And I think that process was crucial. I think it rewired my brain and how I approach those problems. So I guess short answer is yes, I see that academic kind of problem solving approach. I do it a lot now, I mean, obviously from a business perspective, the pace is incredibly
For sure.
accelerated compared to how school was. The volume has to be increased. And then there's a lot of little professional things that you learn over time, how to use CAD, how to actually get construction document sets out there, everything about building codes, accessibility, and then all kinds of things about envelope design and building science. You continuously learn more about those all the time, right? That build on that base knowledge from school. But yeah, it was great. I think architectural education, typically how it's formatted in the United States schools, it's a really great educational experience.
Yeah.
Even if the people go through it and then they don't end up as architects, I think it's a wonderful methodology to learn for just basic problem solving, or complex problem solving, because there's so many different inputs and there's so many ways to solve these problems.
Tell us about that first big project that solidified it was real for you, that this is the business that you're pursuing.
Boy, that's a good question. So I guess we had a couple right at first. I guess the biggest one, and the one that kind of had some notoriety and everything, was Grace Restaurant. It was a restaurant build out that we did that ended up being a um 3 Michelin starred restaurant that got a lot of notoriety and was a highly successful project. And it was already a fairly well-known chef who I don't know, really, really blew into kind of celebrity after that restaurant came out. Uh, and we didn't really know when we approached like how big it would be.
Yeah.
We weren't totally sure, and you never know when these things are going to fall through or something else could happen. So yeah, I guess somewhere when that one finally got under construction and we were really gelling with the same ideas of what we wanted this restaurant to be, that's when it was like, wow, this is actually cool. We could actually be making something really wonderful here. This is like the process that, we wanted it to be, where you're really communicating well with the clients. They really know what we'd call a program is, how they need it to function, how they need it to be occupied for their use, what they need things to be. That communication went so well. And then our design ideas that we brought to the table, and our materiality and the architectonic things that we wanted to do with the space, they were on board with. I think it was a really great match in that way. And it just, I don't know, when you get those, I think when you match up well and you can really communicate well with a client, and you trust the process, where you really come to great creative solutions.
Yeah. It's
It
special.
really,
It's special.
you can kind of feel when it hits. It really, that restaurant turned out great. It was wonderful. It was a beautiful space. Everyone loved it. I mean, it was, yeah, it was really cool. And that was like
Yeah.
literally
That
project
experience with the
door
clients, can it
gateway,
be can it be made, or is it like born inherent? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have somebody with a vision, and they're spending a lot of money. They have a big vision, and they come in with their own set of beliefs, ideals, what have you. Like, have you solved for being able to create that sort of foundation for a more productive relationship?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. And yes, I do think that's another thing that we've kind of learned over time. You don't necessarily automatically click into communicate like great communication mode with some clients. Some you do, some you don't. Some you kind of just never get there to because they can't release. They have to always have to have their way or something. That can also happen on the architect side, right? You have to like really open yourself up so you can get into their head and see what they're looking for. And I find often, when you do that, when you really break it down and you just say, look, I'm gonna just open myself up completely. No preconceived ideas of what we need to do with this space, what we think we need to do from a form making perspective with this space. I'm gonna listen to you and how you live. I feel like if you show that you care about that and you show that you've heard them and you've accepted that really helps them open up then to, here's how I'm solving that problem. You take away those big points, you come back with this design, or a very schematic design, or maybe even a few different ones, but you say, this is what I heard from you say that how you need the space to function. And here's how we're going to solve that problem. And I think when you acknowledge those personal things, it really helps to, open them up to an idea that if they just saw without some kind of back explanation like that, they would almost instantly reject a lot. But once they hear how you've taken how they want to live into this,
Yeah, it's more about it's not
it,
just
it
about
really, I
building,
feel like
it's
it
about
really opens
creating that
people up.
context and an environment where they feel like they can trust you. And then once you present something,
Yeah.
present an idea, which may not necessarily vibe with their initial vision, but if you provide enough context and this trust and this story behind it, like then you can sort of continue to move forward. Is that what you're kind of saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's also key throughout the process to have those like key conceptual sort of milestones that
Yeah.
you can keep track of so that
1000%.
everybody remembers where it came from. Because sometimes, the process from design to construction can be a year, multiple year. And you sort of, it's
Mm.
almost like you forget why you made the decisions you made year 15 months before, right? So it's really good to have those things kind of marked down as these conceptual like bases that the design was based on, so you can remind yourself of that, because otherwise you can get into construction and changes can come
Yeah.
willy-nilly, and then you don't have any kind of basis for design to make
Sure.
decisions.
What what
So
part
it's
of
nice to have those things.
so how do you split up responsibilities between yourself and Christopher? How do you split up responsibilities between you and your partner?
So this is a great question. So I think there's some sense that between the two of us, Christopher was always a little bit more on the business end, likes getting the clients, likes kind of initial meetings, and then a lot of the programming aspects and the construction administration aspects, where I've always gravitated towards, actually getting in there and building up a 3D model and really fine tuning all the little details with the design materials and stuff like that. But that's just in a really general way. We actually have a very, very fluid relationship where we could swap roles on a dime, and it's good that way, because you can kind of sometimes you can get burnt out or even stuck in your own head with where a design's going, and it's great to be able to not just bounce ideas off someone else, but even have them take the wheel for a minute, right? To bring it in a new direction and say, hey, make sure you're thinking about this or this. And so it's a very fluid relationship. Sometimes it's like, which one of us is already like in the weeds
Yeah.
doing construction administration on a big project or something. The other one is the one with time. Sometimes it's that dumb and simple, but yeah, other times it's kind of who
When
put it in or what it
when
appeals
so
to.
after that big project Grace, like
Yeah.
how I know you've done a lot of restaurants, right? Like a bunch of restaurants, and like, can you talk about the next phase of the firm? Like after that initial part where you started to feel a little bit more, like you're gelling. Like what was that like, and what kind of projects did you start taking on, or was there a project that you took on that really, really challenged you?
Yeah, there were several that were very challenging. I guess after that initial, after that initial kind of group of projects that we had, including Grace, we sort of thought that would naturally lead into, I don't know, a lot more things, like a lot of other restaurants like that. What we realized is that that unicorn, or that project was a bit of a unicorn, right? Most restaurants are kind of, you know, if they're one-offs, if they're really creative chef-driven things, they're kind of bootstrapped things where they just throw these things together, and there's really not a lot of there's not a lot of room in it for a designer to come in and do their thing, or they're, you know, kind of corporate chain places or something that already have a concept finished. So yeah, finding our role in that was actually somewhat difficult. We managed through it. We got one chain that we did, which that was less of an overall interesting design thing, but it had its own sets of problems because it was basically implementation of this restaurant all across the nation, and getting it done quickly and working with a lot of other people, and it was a great experience in that way. But yeah, I mean, it was, we had to cobble some things together here and there. We had clients coming in from different sources with different types of projects, like some other commercial things. We had one developer client that we were working with for a long time on various properties without building anything, like years and years, doing all this schematic stuff. And then out of nowhere, that he got a new property, and that turned into probably still the largest project we
Wow.
did, which was about 70,000 square feet
Where's that?
model and addition on a large commercial building. Yeah, so that was interesting. That had its own
Okay.
issues. So that was a building near North and Clybourne, in that area, and it was an old building that was built in, man, I want to say it was the 1910s, all concrete, and it'd been kind of a designer artist loft-ish studio building space, right? Individual units rented out to all these people, and it was kind of run down, wasn't really being used to its best extent. And so we came in and gutted it. It needed to be gutted anyway. All the systems were pretty toast. We added a fourth floor addition on it that was, this is kind of a traditional cast in place concrete Chicago-ish looking building, and we did a very glassy sort of modern addition on it that was very sensitive to the kind of original building, and also created a bunch of roof deck space and amenity space up on the top, which was super nice. But yeah, that was a great building, and it was a huge learning experience, doing something on a scale like that, and just doing the kind of sensitive work you need to do
How long?
for a real rehab project like that. It turned out great. They got a great client for it, and
How long was that project?
yeah, and it fully rented out, and the space seems to work really well. That project, I would say our engagement was probably 16 months solid, and actually for that client it moved sort of quickly because we had been like doing, I don't know, scheme after scheme of schematic designs for other properties for him for months and months and months. And then this one came together quick. The schematic process was
Yeah.
only 3 or 4 months on it, which was really fast for a building of that scale. And then it got under construction. I mean, it was a little bit of a messy project too, because he
For sure.
he was the type of client that just kept changing things throughout it, especially base building things. Our fourth floor addition was pretty well ironed out, and because we did that hand in hand with them, that part didn't change
Yeah.
a lot, but the base building
Yeah.
things changed dramatically.
I wonder, a client like that, like they're a developer client. Were they a developer client? Yeah, yeah. So you're probably hitting a bunch of different ideas to people using your
Yeah.
schematics, and that happened to be the one that sold, right? You think that's what happened? Yeah, that's cool.
Mhm. Yeah, quite often, yeah. And I mean, he was an interesting guy from a developer too, because he had his own like ideas about what buildings
Sure.
should be, and he didn't want it to churn out some generic thing, right? He really wanted it to be something that that improved the neighborhood
Yeah.
and was like moving things in a progressive way towards something
Could
better.
you tell us
He was
tell us
interesting
about
that
what
way.
trends are you sort of paying attention to in terms of design or high performance or net zero or anything towards, the sustainability side or just even materials that you're like eager to use or you just recently used and you like the properties of it? Like anything in terms of trends, material and design?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is, getting into the weeds about like nerdy little things you don't even see, like higher and higher insulative values, rain screen technologies where you really detail the envelope carefully so that it performs extremely well. And that's all like just really boring stuff because you can use a wide variety of finishes on either side of the wall with that. So it doesn't necessarily like lead to some like, I don't know, new movement and form of architecture, um but it's good things to know to really increase the performance of buildings. I mean, otherwise, I think right now in architecture, there's a kind of reckoning with this desire to continue building large new buildings,
Mhm.
right? But then also looking at the carbon footprint of that.
Yeah,
A lot of times it makes more sense to just save what we already have and rehab it to work, right? And I mean, for a long time, especially in the US, right? You just want to build bigger and bigger and bigger all the time, right? And I think what we're seeing now is, at least on the design side, an urge to maybe not build so big, just build what you need because we want to not use so many resources towards that stuff. So that's I don't know, I think that's one kind of fight or conflict that the profession is working through right
yeah,
now. There's a lot of talk about extraction and trying to minimize extraction for new buildings, along with energy use. I guess as far as actual like things you see, all the new timber, multi-story timber construction with cross-laminated timber is really interesting.
Mhm.
Well, I haven't done any of that myself. That's a little larger firms and larger scale buildings, but it's interesting to see where that's moving. There's so much embodied energy in concrete and even a lot of masonry things that, you know, there's been that interest
Sure.
in renewable sources like wood to build these things instead. But that's part of it too. You see new stuff come out all the time. I think that there's technologies being developed for
Yeah,
fast products that don't have
sure.
so much
Tell us.
carbon output
Well, you've been in a business long enough
or
to
all
kind
these
of,
things too.
you know,
Interesting.
survived the that recession and then the pandemic, right? And tell us what's your horizon look like, given new administration? Like what are you thinking from a business owner's perspective? Like what are you, Chris, talking about?
We are cautiously optimistic. This year has actually been pretty good for leads so far. Got a lot of
Yeah,
interest. We've yet to see if that's going to turn into real stuff, right? If everything we're talking about right now, all the people we're talking to actually turns into signed contracts and projects moving forward, it could be a really great year.
sure.
If all of it falls flat, it might be a really tough year, right? So it's always, I mean, we're always operating in that sort of unknown. I think the way our business is so micro small, it has its
For
own
sure. For sure.
issues. I don't even know if it's indicative of national
Yeah.
trends or anything, but and it's all word of mouth, right? Marketing is or never really worked for us in any major
Yeah,
way, although we're trying to, as do some of that now too.
for sure.
So I don't know. I think we're cautiously optimistic at the
Who's
moment.
who's your ideal
There's
project
some
client? Like, do you have a dream
stuff coming
dream
in this
project
year.
that you'd love to work on?
Yeah, I think just I guess a broader range of client would be interesting. I still love doing residences and restaurants, but doing larger scale commercial, doing something in the civic arena would be really cool. Doing public architecture that a lot of different people get to see and
Yeah,
use. This is really interesting to me. That's kind of a holy grail to me.
yeah,
Have something that would be lasting and would really be part of a public kind of community. That would be great. But, in general, I don't know. I like all types of projects. They all require in some ways the same amount of problem solving, and it's really interesting to attack all those different little programs. And ideally we just want clients that are that are open to creative solutions and aren't just kind of spreadsheet bottom line focused, right? They see
Yeah.
value beyond just those line items, and value in creating real spaces that can work for a long time for a lot of different people, and really engage with the landscape and the community and all
For
of
sure.
that,
And I think you would be remiss if we didn't talk about
micro
Ever.
internal uses.
Probably is that probably your most sort of uh, popular sort of project that you've done? We ended up doing a little video walkthrough of that. Can you talk briefly about that project?
Yeah. So I mean, Evera was the second restaurant with the guys that did Grace, right? Importantly, which was the great restaurant that kicked off our career, basically. So it was great to do another project with them. They had their ups and downs of all that too, and Grace or Evera was a great next step for those guys. It was great to be back in with them because they were great clients to work with and everything, and to go through the process again. And like, we're much better now than when we did the thing before. They're much better. We knew how to work together, and yeah, it really turned out well, and it really worked out well. I mean, I feel like it's one of the most complete projects we've done, in that, like, we got to get all the details together to really sing. The whole thing works exactly like it should. Yeah, all those things about it are great. It's a space that a lot of people can go to see, and do and see it in different contexts has been nice too,
Yeah.
as opposed to a residence that sometimes people will only just see photos of. Ever is great because we can
Yeah, I don't think
take people there, and people
what's
can
really
go through it.
interesting was I think kind of looking back, like really the sort of canyon sort of entryway that was and the wall and how you said, and the circular float. That was like, there was a lot of intention brought into that. The restaurant definitely felt like art in itself, or beyond.
Mhm.
I've never eaten, the food, just from an
Yeah.
experience level, it just felt truly special.
Yeah, thanks for, and that's exactly what we
Yeah.
were trying to go for. You want to almost step into another world. It's not quite. I mean, it's not quite like a movie set or something, but it is.
For sure.
There's an idea about transporting you somewhere else when you go there, and putting you in a different mindset where you're really, like, open and accepting of a creative experience. Because
Yeah.
I mean, that meal
Yeah.
is
For sure.
is close to
Sure.
just food
All
gets,
right.
right?
So, do you want to brainstorm? Like,
Yeah, those things go hand in hand.
let's talk about something that I can help you out with. Like, is there anything that we can brainstorm about the business, help take you seize this next year? Like, what anything that I could anything you need help with?
I mean, I guess, yeah, just getting the word out in a way that is,
Mm-hmm.
I guess,
Mm-hmm.
both honest about, like, what we can do and who we are, but then also is like welcoming and attractive in a way. Like, I sometimes worry that people think we're too, I don't know, verbose, or we overdo things, or we, like, I don't know, think too highly of ourselves or something. You know what I mean? We're actually pretty approachable
Yeah.
people that take the work really seriously, but not ourselves necessarily as
Sure.
much, right? And we're truly trying to help people just make things better. So, yeah, I don't know. As
For
some
sure.
marketers
Sure.
approach that,
I
explained that more, and maybe even a way to conceive of our business where it's not just, we don't just need these absolutely unicorn high level projects.
For
We
sure.
can figure out a way to
One thing that
get
I
in
think
some
about,
smaller things too, that
so and being in business 13 years, I can imagine that your Google contacts, you probably have a few thousand people in there, right? The first thing that I would do, honestly, is like the rest of this month, just clean up your database, and just everybody in, name, email, phone number, and then if you can tag them, whether they are, a developer, a client, a prospect, and then that's one of the things that I would do, is just like get organized with your list. And then once you sort of get organized with that list, just
Mhm.
use an email marketing software like MailChimp. You know, like you can get up to 2,000 emails for free. Like you can use it for free for up to 2,000 emails, and um and and send out an email, an honest email. It's like, hey, you know, we've done business, or you've contacted us, and we're going to be sending out, you know, once a month news updates. And so this is probably where you and Chris can just really kind of say what projects you working on, and, like, you know, an update, a highlight, a past project, and then give people ideas. So, like, again, you know, it's like, what are you currently working on and what are you learning from it? So then that sort of shows them, you know, what you're capable of, what you've done in the past, because then that's like a flex to your portfolio. And then the third part is like, hey, here's some really interesting things. Like, if you want something in your home, like a new bathroom or a new entryway or a new this or a new that, like, these are some ideas. Or if your business, if you want to really make a statement in your reception area,
Mhm.
or you want to do an office build out, like, these are some things to come in mind. Last Friday of the month, we're holding office hours. Feel free to just, like, hop on a Zoom call with us and we can just talk through your project. Like, and then that's the call to action, is just like the biggest thing is, I always have to remind
Mm.
clients that just when you, like, people don't know that you exist, and you actually have to remind them multiple times that you do exist,
Mhm.
because they're not going to ever think about you. And think about the state of the world as it is right now. Like, literally nobody's thinking about you unless, you know, they absolutely need you in that moment. But if you are staying top of mind and you're being educational,
Mhm.
like, I would be I mean, not because, not because we're just friends, but, like, I would want to see an email from you on the things that you're working on, because you have things in your portfolio that are dug deep. The only way people ever know about them is if they go to your website. But, like, if you can resurface them, that would be a good way to just get everybody just thinking of you. And then, so not only there is that, but I would then break up each of those different sections as posts on LinkedIn. So, like if you send out a monthly email with those three
Mhm.
sections, each of those different emails, different sections of the emails are different posts on LinkedIn. And then now, like, your LinkedIn is probably like developers and other architects and that. So now you're starting to build an audience there, and you're extending the life of your newsletter. That's like the simplest bottom line thing that you could do.
Mhm.
Get you and Chris, like, upload everything into a spreadsheet, and then just, like, clean up. Just, like, literally clean up your list. And then that's number one. Number two is then register for MailChimp, and then, like, upload it up to 2,000. And then the third thing is just to send out an email blast. That's it. Is that helpful?
Mhm. Mhm. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that is hopeful. There
Yeah, no, I mean, that's honestly the
to
biggest.
have actual, like, actionable items on.
Take advantage. The biggest, I mean, email is the largest. I mean, people think like, oh, nobody reads emails. Like, email newsletters are actually a thing now. Like, email news. I have friends that just, like, they're building their whole entire business around email newsletters. So email is a very big thing. Cool. Cool. All right. Well, why don't you tell everybody your website so that they could follow your work?
Cool. Okay. So our website is
Thank you so much, Micah.
www.arch.com.
All right. Great to see you.
And that is the best portfolio.
Bye.
Thank you, Steve.